I think there's a lot that happens in this aesthetic industry that a lot of people don't know. But the benefit that I have is I have been lucky enough to train for 8 years with laser therapy and trying to modernize, where we can mix traditional medicine and aesthetic medicine. Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Linette Rivera, and we are finally here on our first episode of the Wellness Podcast. And I'm here with Sophia.
Hey, guys.
Sophia, tell us a little bit about who you are within our company.
I am the behind-the-scenes GLANZ girl. I handle all of your points of view when it comes to what you see on YouTube, Instagram, all the socials, and I am a creative as well. So I'm helping Linette Rivera's executions and ideas come to life for you guys to see.
So you basically are the person who's here to show everyone at home what is happening behind the scenes while we treat our patients.
I make some of the magic happen.
Exactly.
Some of the magic happen. Shout out to Jake, though. Shout out to Jake for also making that happen, too.
So the Wellness Blueprint, it's a podcast that I have been trying to create for the last, I would say, 2 years. I think there's a lot that happens in this aesthetic industry that a lot of people don't know. So when I came with this idea to Jake and Sophia, they were like, we're super excited. This is something that we would definitely also want to do. And, it's a little hard because podcasts, there's so much that we have to say. So we kind of have to see how we're going to say it, what episodes we're going to record. But what we want this to be is more of an interaction between Sophia and me or anyone that I'm interviewing, where, we come in to tell you exactly how it is, no hidden disguises of any kind, because we want you to learn the truth about aesthetics and everything else that involves that.
So starting off, I have a couple of questions for you because as an outsider, I just started aesthetics working here not that long ago. So I wanted to get your perspective since she is an endocrinologist, you are an endocrinologist.
Yeah.
How can you describe the journey of transitioning from endocrinology to aesthetics? Because they're two completely different entities within medicine and just overall.
Absolutely. So aesthetics, you're not going to see a lot of aesthetic providers that are endocrinologists. And for those of you who don't know what an endocrinologist is, because it's kind of like a mouthful, an endocrinologist is a physician that specializes in hormones and metabolism. Hormones control basically our entire body, from our thyroid controlling our metabolism to our thyroid and our cortisol controlling our brains, the way we think, our reproductive hormones, the way that we have desires for whether it is sex or how we work, how we exercise. Everything is controlled by hormones. So I started as an endocrinologist with a hospital, I would say around 8 years ago, and I loved it. I loved being an endocrinologist, but it was more of like a limited amount of time that I had with my patients. So it became where I would go to work at 8:30 in the morning. I would see my patients come out, and I had maybe 15 minutes to talk to them. So you can't really establish a relationship with the patient or even ask them, like, really, what do you need? How can I actually help you? It's going to be more of like, how are your medicines? Let's talk about your labs, and do you need a refill? So it was more where the patients, my patients loved me and I loved them, but my quality of a relationship with the patients was not there. So as a girl myself, I was getting already Botox and fillers. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to try to go to a training and see if I like all this aesthetics world. And I went to a conference and I absolutely fell in love with this field. So from there, I quit endocrinology and I said, I'm going to dive full into everything aesthetics. And from there, I started, diving into lasers and injectables. So, it's been a great journey. I've learned a lot, but it's been fun doing it.
Yeah,
definitely. So that's how I transitioned.
Would you say you still hold a lot of what you've learned in endocrinology and applied it to your current practice here?
Absolutely. So here at GLANZ, what we do is not only we have our aesthetic side, but as you know, because you record all the patients,
Yeah.
we do all the laser therapies, facials, we do injectables, so all sorts of different injectable treatments, but also we have our wellness side. So that's where I kind of, grab my endocrinology and kind of keep it close to my heart because I can still
Mm-hmm.
do it,
Yeah.
but I do it in a more natural way. So we do hormone replacement more in the natural side, where it's more with pellet therapy. And we're going to be talking all about this in subsequent episodes. But I also have the weight loss part of it. So I incorporate my knowledge of metabolism into, treating the patients. And then everything that comes with it, IV fluid therapy, peptide therapy. So I don't think I completely left my endocrinology world. I just like to think about it in a way that I'm perfectioning it and trying to modernize, where we can mix traditional medicine and
Mm-hmm.
aesthetic medicine or cosmetics.
Mm-hmm. What would you say is the biggest misconception when it comes to med spas run by a doctor versus med spas run by a practitioner or someone that hasn't been, exactly experienced in, handling patients, or just like well versed in so many of the issues that could happen, because there have been a lot of horror stories, which
Yeah,
we might get into another episode with. But
yeah.
what would you say is the biggest misconception when it comes to that in general with the
I
industry?
think in terms of the patients, I think patients think if there's somebody there that's in the medical field and they opened a med spa, it means everything that they're doing is legit and they know what they're doing and they have the experience behind it. As in any field, I feel experience goes beyond what you learn when you start it. I think whether you're a nurse practitioner or a PA in Florida, you have to be able to inject, you have to be a nurse practitioner, or do we have to pause it? Oh, okay. So in Florida, for you to be able to inject, you have to be a nurse practitioner or a PA, or a physician. Now, I do think the most important thing when patients come in and say, let me go to this med spa or this aesthetics clinic, they have to make sure first that the provider has had the appropriate, training, and that they're under, the laws of that state,
Mm-hmm.
because that happens a lot where random people are injecting patients and they're not even licensed. And not only that, but that you kind of research the provider that is going to be taking care of you. It's I take trainings. Sorry, I take trainings all the time, even with my background in medicine,
Mm-hmm.
because so many new things come out that you have to keep yourself up to date with, like, trends and things that are changing, how medications vary throughout the years. So I think all of that is key when somebody's kind of like saying, okay, should I go to this med spa? Is this med spa good? Not everything, or how is it that you say? I'm Puerto Rican, so I'm bad with like sayings. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like not everything that shines is gold or something like that.
Not
So
everything that shimmers is
there we go.
gold. Mm-hmm.
So I mean, we're talking about your face, your body, these are important. It's like going to a physician or a provider where you want them to be able to treat you in the best way possible.
Mm-hmm.
And just because there's a med spa that has their doors open doesn't mean that happens all the time.
How do you handle the huge flux of people coming to you and wanting results that are unattainable? Because social media, at least from my perspective,
Yeah.
so much is photoshopped and so much is very toxic, in the sense that there's so many ideals that are not just reached in one session, or
Mm-hmm.
they're expected to be achievable in any person, but sometimes that might not be the case. So how would you say your approach to that is? Because obviously you want to make your patients happy, but sometimes that's just,
Mm-hmm.
not the case. You don't want to turn them into like crazy. Like, you don't want to make them
Yeah,
look
they look
insane.
right.
Yeah.
I think it's just being honest with the patient and trying to tell them, listen, this is not something that we're going to achieve in one treatment.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be something that you're going to need two, three, four treatments. In medicine, there's nothing that's absolute, right? So The benefit of, in my case, our office is that I have multiple lasers that I can use and I can switch them around to help patients treat whatever problem they have. But at the same time, being honest with the patient goes a long way. I think
Mm-hmm.
if you tell the patients, listen, if you have tiny lips and you want Kylie Jenner's lips, that's not going to happen overnight, and whoever tells you that, they're lying. It's not true. A lot of the before and afters also ask the providers, how many treatments was that? How many, syringes did you use for this patient? Because sometimes we look at a before and after and we're like, oh, that's amazing. Is it 2 syringes? And it's actually 10 syringes. Or,
Mm-hmm.
we go into our mind just thinks that we know how it's done just because we're seeing a picture beside it. And it doesn't always happen that way. So I think having a provider that's honest and speaks very, very clear and truthful from the beginning for that patient is key into having amazing outcomes.
Yeah, that instant gratification, I think, is what like gets people, because it's
Correct.
like, we want this now, like we want these things now.
Yeah.
What trends do you foresee like in laser technology, since you have some sort of a, you constantly want to train and whatnot? What do you think in the next like year, or what predictions do you see laser having a major impact on the aesthetics industry?
I think throughout the years, if you look at what people are wanting the most is very low downtime and outstanding results.
Mm-hmm.
I think when we dive into lasers a little bit more in future episodes, we're going to talk about what's the difference between ablative and non-ablative and what causes such outstanding results with whatever amount of treatments. I think where the companies are going to be, I would say, providing evolution to the laser world is going to be a laser that first is minimally painless and that you can have results that are achievable without having such a long downtime.
Yeah.
Because some people think 5 to 7 days is a long downtime. I don't think it is, because burn my face, make it pretty, and make me younger. So I don't care. But a lot of patients do, that especially here in Florida, we have the sun all the time. So it's kind of like, how are we going to do lasers in the summer? I have a lot of providers that ask me, how do you do lasers there in the summer? I'm like, the summer is the same for the whole year. Yeah. So it doesn't really matter if it's summer or winter. So it's kind of like, as a provider, I have tried to kind of like look for alternatives to be able to do lasers even when it's hot in Florida, so that the patients can have really good results, but they don't have, they're going to have downtime, but they don't have to stay inside their house for 7 days, because that's unattainable. You can't tell somebody, don't go out.
Mm-hmm. And ideally, I think when it comes from you being a doctor and you understand like the effects of it, that's so much more impactful, because some people are just like, yeah, you have laser, okay, you can just do whatever you want. They don't need to tell you all the rules, or they don't need to be like, listen, you can't do this, that, and the other, because they're just like, oh, I just want your money. I just want like the treatment and stuff.
Another thing that I see a lot is, for example, I have patients that come in and they tell me, okay, I had this laser done at this clinic, and they said that was the best for me, when in reality, I don't think it would have been the best for that patient. But I always tell the clients I see, everyone's going to recommend what they have in the office. That's, unfortunately, that's how this money market works. And it's sad to say, because you would think as a provider, you would say,
they want the best interest for the patient.
But it's not true. And that it's sad, but it's the reality. So the benefit that I have is, I have been lucky enough to train for 8 years with laser therapy, and I have 5 of them in the office. So I am able to coordinate a good treatment plan to get you really good results, because I have those tools in my hand. But if you don't, it's like going to a car sale garage, right? And they're like, well, I would like to get a BMW. And they're like, well, we don't have BMW. We have this one. They're going to try to sell you that one, whether it's the car you actually wanted since the beginning when you arrived. So that I have been blessed. So I can't, I'm lucky to have a lot of toys that I can use. But yeah, I mean, I think for the patients, because we want, right? We want what's best for the patient. So this is the reason we are creating this podcast so that you learn. Knowledge is key for the future, right? When I think about what medicine was a long time ago without the internet, if you think about it, there wasn't any Dr. Google, there wasn't, Google search. So people were like, they would go to the doctor. Otherwise, they would be clueless. They wouldn't know what they had to do. If you think about how medicine was, 30 years ago, we would go to the physician. They would tell you, okay, you have this. And you're like, okay, I understood 5 words of what the doctor said. I can't Google, I can't confirm it. There's no way for me to know if this doctor is lying or not, right? So technology has helped us as patients to learn more about our conditions, see if we have a second opinion, see how we can improve on things that we can do at home, right? To help whatever condition we have. So that's the key to this podcast. There's nothing like that in aesthetics. You can Google, but there's so many different treatments that it's hard to say, okay, this is the one I need. I actually had a friend the other day text me, I'm trying to think of doing this treatment, but it's driving me crazy. Like I Google something and 7 different treatments come up. So I was like, let me just text Linette. So that is what we want for you to learn, for you as a patient to not even take what we say to full blown, belief. Just hear us, learn, because we want to teach you so that when you come to us or you go to any other clinic in the US, you know what questions to ask and you know if they're telling you the truth and if it's going to be something that's going to work for your treatment or the condition you want to treat, whether it is hormones or it is, skin.
And how do you get training for different aesthetics procedures, and how much would that roughly be if someone were to want to try and train today?
So if you are an esthetician, they tend to do more facials and laser therapy. I think for that, you have to take a course to do lasers and then take your courses to be an esthetician. In terms of a physician or a nurse practitioner or a nurse, you go through the process of becoming a nurse or becoming a doctor. After that, it's kind of all on you, because I will tell you, in residency, aesthetics is not something that's taught, and it's something that if you really have the passion for, you have to go to like trainings or seminars to get train yourself. For me, even when I've been doing this for so many years, I still go to 4 or 5 trainings a year, because I think you learn from different people, you learn different techniques. That's going to make you a better provider for your patients. But I mean, some of these courses can be $5,000, $8,000 just for 1 weekend of, listening to someone train and inject. So they tend to be pretty pricey, which, we are in an aesthetics world that's expensive. Aesthetic treatments are expensive. That's the truth. And the reason for that is not only the products that we use that are quality products, but also how much we have to train to be able to provide those services. So all that goes into the cost of the treatment. And to be honest, if I was going to think of going to a provider that does aesthetics, I would like to go to the best, right? Because you don't want to risk your face or your body or your skin or something bad happening. So you want that provider that spends money on getting trained every single year.
I know, especially like I grew up with like a mom who is also into aesthetics. She loves taking care of herself. She's always like, listen, if you're going to ask for something, you better ask from the very best, because anything can go wrong. And it's like, as long as you have a good resource to go back on, then everything will be fine if something were to happen. Right. So it's the peace of mind too, because if you're going to someone's back door like aesthetics clinic, no shade to those people if you guys know what you're doing, but like there are a lot of people that will, at least here in Miami, like scam you and like they'll just inject whatever they want into you, as long as like they're getting what they want, which is money and like your time and whatnot. So that's definitely a very key thing to take away here, is like no matter what, like you want to go to the best of the best. You want to go to someone who understands what patients go through and puts that at ease for them.
Absolutely.
Because at the end of the day, there's treatment, and then there's, you know, the connection you have with your physician or whoever you're taking your treatment from. So that's just throughout medical, you know, practice, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, I mean, one thing is if nothing bad happens, then that's fine.
Yeah,
nothing bad happens.
Yeah, you did your job.
The problem is when bad outcomes arise, it becomes very tedious for the patient, and it creates an anxiety because you think you're going to a provider that's going to help you, and they just don't know what to do. So at that point, it's not only trying to fix what was done, but also the stress of like, am I ever going to go back to looking how I was looking? Or, is this ever going to be something that I'm going to be able to reverse? So at that point, a lot of times there's nothing you can do. And when I think of treatments that I want to get done or that I would like to put myself through, I try to go to the best in the market because it's scary. The things that we're going to be telling you are scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, risk can happen. Nothing is without risk. Even when we take a medication, there's risk involved in it. But like I said, you want to have that backup of like, okay, my provider will know what they need to do to either make it better or try to help me go through the process. Because, there's nothing worse than to come to a provider that says, I don't know what to do. At that point, you're like, oh my God.
I know,
okay.
like what happened. Yeah.
Right. So I think, there's a lot of, we're going to talk about complications and all that. There's complications on everything. There's nothing that's risk-free.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of, the complications in this aesthetic world they're minimal, but they still happen. But they are minimal. We try, at least at my office, which it's the only thing I can tell you because I don't know the offices in Miami.
Yeah.
I can tell you, we use the best products to make sure the patients have good results. They have a good encounter with anyone that works here. We try to guide you even in the simplest facial or simplest treatment that you're going to get here. You're going to get post instructions. You're going to get what you're going to be expecting. You're going to have a phone number where you can call us at any time if you have questions. You don't get that anywhere, and for me that is key to having the patients feel calm.
And you must feel a lot more, I guess, secure in your practice now, because in a hospital, it's not that easy to just call your doctor and say, hey, this happened to me. Like, you have to go through nurses and you have to sign all these forms. It's a very long and tedious process.
Yeah.
And I think what you've done so well is always reassure the patient, like, listen, if you have any doubt or if you feel weird, you can literally just call us, like, in a couple hours when the office opens, and we'll be available for you right away, like for you to check up.
I will tell you, I created this clinic with myself in mind, right? So how would I want to be treated if I go to an aesthetic place? How would I want the doctor to treat me? How would I want the staff to greet me? How would I want, if something happens, who can I call? Is it a simple process, or do I have to call 7 different call centers to try to get to somebody that can help me? So everything that we've done here at GLANZ is very meticulously planned with a purpose of giving the patient the best experience.
But yeah, I mean, this was a great intro to more to come when we get into the deep dive of all the procedures we have, including trends that are going on across aesthetics as of now and in the future.
We are going to. So a big part of our podcast is we want to know what you want to know, right? So we want to see what your questions are. Do you have questions on treatments? Do you have questions on products? Do you have questions for us If you're a business owner, do you have questions on like business ownership, entrepreneuring? So anything that you can think of, I would say send it to us. You can either DM us. This is going to be running on YouTube. So you can send us an email to contact us at glanzaesthetics.com if you want to start learning more, because we're going to talk about a lot, but there's always things that we might not think about that patients do think about. So we want to hear you and see what you want to learn about. Okay, we will see you on our next episode. Bye, guys.